Good morning, and welcome to Bear Reads His Bible. We're in Matthew 26 this week. We read Matthew 25, Parable of the Talents, last week. And because there's no coincidence, we read that while we were on a mission to use our talents to serve the kingdom. We also, in Matthew 25, which if you haven't seen that video, just go back a week. We have a Shabbat playlist here, and Shabbat just is a fancy Hebrew word for Sabbath, the Sabbath being the holy day, and I read my Bible with y'all on the holy day. And so, amongst many other things that we do. But you can go back and watch that video because it also includes the parable of the 10 bridesmaids and the whole, well, my Jesus will just take care of me when the world ends. Actually, when he comes back, he doesn't look too kindly on those bridesmaids, us, those of us who have not filled their lamp with oil and who have not trimmed their wick and who are not awake and watchful and waiting. They do not enter into the marriage with the bridegroom Messiah. They're left behind, which is not cool. So, fill your lamp. I was thinking about that the other day. Metaphorically, that lamp, if you're the lamp, what would you fill that lamp up with so that you could light it? For me, that's the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh. And get filled up with the Spirit. Well, how do you do that? You talk to the Father, you pray, you read His Word. You put your faith into action and do good works. Fill your lamp up. Now you get your lamp full of oil. You trim that wick. The wick is the part that burns. It's on fire, right? For me, that could be metaphorically trimming back the parts of me that are just self-serving and not serving of the kingdom. Snip that off. We don't need that part. Because a lamp that the wick is not properly set on smokes. It produces poor light. It's less than ideal. So you get your wick squared away. And then you need an ignition source. You gotta light that lamp. Then that gets me thinking, right? That ignition source is outside the lamp. Most nowadays, you can get that Coleman lantern with the piezoelectric that lights it. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an oil lamp. So it'd be like a flint and steel or a match or whatever. Who's your ignition source? What lights your fire, literally? Who is the spark that sets you on fire? Yeah. These things, metaphorically, I believe Messiah spoke to me, so I can speak them to you. He's not interested in people with empty lamps. They're just paying lip service to serving their Creator, serving their Savior, and serving the kingdom. He wants people who are filled up and on fire for Him. That's who enters into the marriage with Him. And so here in 26, it's going to pick up immediately after these conversations that Messiah is having with His apostles, His taught ones. So, Matthew 2:6. Please get your Bibles out. Please read along with me. Please do not take my word for it. Please. Matt 2:6. And it came to be when Yeshua ended all these words, the parables that he just discussed in 25. He said to his taught ones, his apostles, you know that after 2 days, the Pesach takes place, the Passover. 2 days after, Pesach takes place, and the son of Adam is to be delivered up to be impaled. After 2 days, Passover is going to start, and the son of Adam, the son of man, Yeshua, is to be delivered up to be impaled. Then the chief priests and the scribes and the elders of the people came together at the court of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and they plotted to seize Yeshua by trickery and kill him. But they said, not at the festival of Pesach, lest there be an uproar amongst the people. And when Yeshua was in Bethania, at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him having an alabaster flask of costly perfume, and she poured it on his head, and he sat at the table. And when his apostles, his taught ones, saw it, they were much displeased, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this perfume could have been sold for much and given to the poor. We could have sold that perfume and used that money to feed the poor, bro. However, when Yeshua noticed it, he said to them, why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a good work toward me. For you always have the poor with you, but me you do not always have. For in pouring this perfume on my body, she did it for my burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in all the world, what this woman has done shall be spoken of also to her remembrance. And here we are, speaking of it. Then one of the 12, called Yehuda from Kerioth, or Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, what would you give me to deliver him to you? So Judas goes to the priest and is like, let's cut a deal. I can deliver up Messiah. Of course, the priests did not consider him Messiah. Woe unto them. And they counted out 30 pieces of silver. And from then on, he was seeking an occasion to deliver him up. Counted out 30 pieces of silver. We are going to flip to Zechariah 11. Isn't that right, honey? Yup. Do you even Zechariah, bro? Come on. There we are. Zechariah 11. Zechariah 11 is an interesting passage because it deals with a shepherd and his flock, and Messiah quotes from it. We're going to see here in a little bit, he quotes from it. You should read the entirety of Zechariah 11 at some point to get a little bit more context around the concept of shepherding somebody, especially understanding that Yeshua quotes this. Okay, but Zechariah 11, he's talking about here these two, or this shepherd, he's got two staves. So we'll actually start in 11:7. So I shepherded the flock meant for slaughter, the truly poor of the flock, and I took myself 2 staves. One I called pleasantness, and the other I called unity, and I shepherded the flock. Then I sent off the 3 shepherds in 1 month, for my being despised them, and their being also loathed me. So I said, I am not shepherding you. Let the dying die, and the straying stray, and let those who are left eat each other's flesh. And I took my staff pleasantness, and I cut it in 2 to break the covenant which I had made with all the peoples. So it was broken on that day, and the poor of the flock who were watching me knew it was the word of Yahweh. Yeah. And I said to them, if it is good in your eyes, give me my wages, and if not, refrain. So they weighed out for my wages 30 pieces of silver. And Yahweh said to me, throw it to the potter, the splendid price at which I was valued by them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of Yahweh for the potter. Then I cut into my other staff unity to break the brotherhood between Yehudah, between Judah and Israel. And Yahweh said to me, take again the implements of the foolish shepherd. For look, I am raising up a shepherd in the land who does not visit those straying, nor seek the young, nor heal those that are broken, nor feed those that will stand. But he does eat the flesh of the fat and tear off their hooves. Woe to the worthless shepherd forsaking the flock. Let a sword be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall wither and his right eye shall be dimmed. You got any self-help pastors around having arm or eye problems? So, 30 pieces of silver in the potter's field. Remember that. That is key to these passages here in Matthew. So, Judas, Yehudah, was offered 30 pieces of silver to deliver up Messiah. And on the first day of unleavened bread, the taught ones came to Yeshua, saying to him, where do you wish for us to prepare for you to eat the Pesach? Whoa, wait a minute. I thought Jesus did Easter. Let's just briefly, just a little bit. Easter is, according to modern Christian doctrine and dogma, the celebration of Messiah dying, being crucified, dying, and then rising again 3 days later. How did he celebrate this before his crucifixion? Short answer, he didn't. He celebrated Passover, Pesach. This word, Pesach, everywhere it occurs in the Bible, but one time, is translated as Passover. That one time, it is an intentional mistranslation to Easter that was done to condition people of the Holy Roman Church to absorb pagan traditions into the doctrines and dogmas of the church, i.e. Easter, which is pagan fertility worship based around Ishtar, which was a pagan lower G goddess of fertility, which is why we have bunnies that lay eggs, because bunnies get after it, and eggs are a symbol of fertility. And the whole sunrise service thing, the Father hates it. He calls it an abomination that we would worship these pagan lowercase g gods as the sun comes up. You should do a little research into why the church worships on Sunday as well, because it's all kind of tied together. So, no, Yeshua did not have an Easter ham with his peeps. They didn't do that because they didn't eat ham, and they didn't have an Easter celebration because they don't worship false gods, and he had not yet been crucified and raised up from the dead to celebrate anyway. If that narrative was accurate, which it's not. And so I'm begging you, don't take my word for it. Just do a little bit of research into that and you would be amazed. There's actually a very good book from the people that put this translation of this Bible together. This is the scriptures. I have an entire video on why I use this Bible. Just put in the YouTube search bar, Bear Independent Bible, and you'll find my video on this translation. But they do a book called Come Out of Her, My People that explains all of the pagan roots of things like Easter and Christmas and Sunday worship. And it's enough if you're really trying to worship Yahweh, and if you're really trying to follow your Messiah as the archetype of what faith in Yah should look like, it's enough for me to make me puke in my mouth a little bit every time I read it. There's just a lot of appalling traditions of man in there that do not serve Yahweh at all, and we serve a jealous El. He is jealous for us, and he wants our full attention, and he abhors us when we go whoring after false idols like Easter and Christmas. So that's all I'll say on that, and I'm going to just ask you kindly to please do your own research, because I know I'm going to get myriad comments. No unresearched comments, please. Go look first, and then we'll talk. Because I don't, again, I'm Brother T. I'm not Pastor T. It is not my job to talk from this position down to you at this position. We are on the same level here. But I'm telling you, research these things. Don't take my word for it. Men will fail you. I will fail you. Your pastor will fail you. Your best friend will fail you. Your brothers from men's group will fail you. Because we're human and we fail. It's a big part of what we do. It's not the only part, but it is part of what we do. So you research it for yourself, okay? So, moving on. They're looking for a place to eat the Passover, the Pesach. And Yeshua said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am to perform the Pesach at your house with my taught ones." And the taught ones did as Yeshua had ordered them and prepared the Pesach. Flip to Leviticus 2:3, Levi 2:3 right quick. Wa'ikra. Leviticus 23, verse 5. Well, verse 4. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, set apart gatherings which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. In the first new moon, on the 14th day of the new moon, between the evenings, is the Pesach to Yahweh. And on the 15th day of the new moon is the festival of matzah, of unleavened bread, to Yahweh. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. On the first day you have a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. This is where they're gathering, at this dude's house, to do the Passover. On the first day you have a set apart, a holy convocation. Yeah, like it's a feast. Set apart gathering. And you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh for 7 days. On the seventh day it is a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. Okay. So Leviticus 23 is the go-to chapter for biblical feasts. And check this out. Just at the bottom of my page in verse 14, it says right here, in this context of, these feasts, it says, "And you do not eat bread or roasted grain or fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to your Elohim. A law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings." I have that underlined. A law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. In fact, we can go over here to 22:31. "And you shall guard my commands and do them. I am Yahweh." I am Yahweh. Remember, why did Yeshua come? He came to separate us from our sins, to make atonement for our sins, so we can seek the face of our Father and not suffer the death that we deserve for our transgression of the Father's will and the Father's law. Okay, and he also came to embody plera'u, the Torah and the prophets, to show us how to do these things, which he did, including the Passover. right? And then we get communion, basically, from this as well, to show us how to do these things. And there's an argument that has been made, and I think poorly, that communion has replaced Passover. A law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. I'm pretty sure when Yahweh says forever, he means it. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, that's not the case. So, yeah. Flip back over to Matt 2:6. Verse 19, and the taught ones did as Yahweh had ordered them and prepared the Pesach, the Passover. And when evening came, he sat down with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, truly I say to you, one of you shall deliver me up. And they were deeply grieved and began to say to him, each of them, Master, is it I? And he answering said, he who has dipped his hand with me in the dish, he shall deliver me up. Indeed, the son of Adam goes as it has been written concerning him. But woe to that man by whom the son of Adam is delivered up. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. And Yehuda and Judas, he who delivered him up, answering, said to him, Rabbi, is it I? And Yeshua said to him, you said it. And as they were eating, Yeshua took bread, and having blessed, broke and gave it to the taught ones, and said, take, eat, this is my body. And taking the cup and giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of this fruit of the vine from now until that day when I drink of it anew with you in my reign of the Father. So, a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Taking the cup and giving thanks, he said to them, drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of this fruit of the vine from now until that day when I drink of it anew with my Father's reign in heaven. Again, we have an allusion to a Nazirite vow by Yeshua. Now we know his first miracle was to turn water into wine at the wedding feast. We know that he drank wine because the Pharisees earlier in this book of Matthew accused him of being a drunk, a wine bibber. And he said, whoa, John the Baptist didn't drink and you said he had demons, and then I have a drink and you say that I'm a drunkard. Pick one, you hypocrites. So we know that he drank wine, but somewhere in here, and perhaps it's right here, there's a demarcation where from this time forward, I'm good. I'm good, bro. And so we talked about the Nazirite vow in our Old Testament portion, Numbers 6. So I'm not saying that Yeshua did take a Nazirite vow, but I am saying that his actions match somebody who would have taken a Nazirite vow in several ways. So I can't definitively say that he took the vow, but I mean, to take a Nazirite vow means to set yourself apart unto Yahweh. Did he not do that? Absolutely. He did it in the most perfect way possible that none of us will ever be able to even compare to. So, yeah. So, now, for this is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. Flip to Exodus 12. I know, some of you guys are like, Bear, stop it. So much flippy. Why all the flip, bro? Exodus 12. Exodus 12:21. And Moses, and remember, Yeshua rebukes the Pharisees. You don't know me because you don't know Moses. If you knew Moses, you'd know me. Okay? But see, when they When they talk about legalism, when Yeshua talks about legalism, what he's talking about is not his Father's perfect law given by the Father to Moses, which Yeshua came to embody. I come not to destroy, but to fulfill, to play ra'u, to be the fulfillment of, to physically embody the Greek word play ra'u, this Torah and these prophets, which none, not even a little tiny bit of it, will pass away until all be done. All has not be done yet. So Yeshua knew Moses, okay? In fact, the messenger of Yahweh who instructed Moses up on the mountain, that's a capital M messenger. That was Yeshua. So Moses knew Yeshua, and Yeshua knew Moses. Okay, so these concepts that Yeshua taught from the Torah and the prophets, yeah, he knew them because he was there. Where do you think they came from in the first place? So here we go. Exodus 12, Moses 21. And Moshe called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, go out and take lambs for yourselves according to your clans and slay the Pesach. Lamb. I'm washed by the blood of the lamb. Do you understand what that means? And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, which is like it's a plant. It's like a bush, basically. So they're going to take a sprig of this bush, dip it in the blood that is in that basin, and strike the lintel and the two doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And you, none of you, shall go out of the door of his house until morning. And Yahweh shall pass on to smite the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, and shall see the blood on the lintel and the two doorposts. And Yahweh shall pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses to smite you. And you shall guard this word as a law for you and your sons forever. Forever. Not until next Sunday when your pastor says, no, we don't do that anymore. That was nailed to the cross. Which, by the way, if we're going to have that conversation, I believe it's in Colossians, the law was nailed to the cross. Ceremonial law, because Yeshua is the high priest and our temple is right here. Everything else still stands, including this, because this comes from Yahweh. And you shall guard this word as a law for you and your sons forever. And it shall be when you come to the land which Yahweh gives you, as he promised, you shall guard this service. And it shall be when your children say to you, what does this service mean to you? Then you shall say, this is the Pesach of slaughtering of Yahweh. Slaughtering of Yahweh, who passed over the house of the children of Israel in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, when he smote the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, and delivered our households. And the people bowed their heads and did obeisance. Passover literally means to pass over, that you do not suffer for your sin because you have been marked by the blood of the Lamb. Okay? So, Yeshua, at this Passover feast, is telling his apostles, do this in remembrance of me. Take this wine, this is my blood. What does that blood during Passover signify? The context here matters. These guys got it. And unfortunately, because the Old Testament is not taught in the modern Christian church, most modern Christians don't get it. They don't understand the connection here. It's deep. A law for you and your sons forever. It's that deep. Yeshua knew this. Again, who do you think taught Moshe? Okay. Now, flip from there to Hebrews, Ibrim. And yes, I have many a time, I am on camera saying that I don't love the book of Hebrews because its veracity is highly contested. Not by me, by hundreds of biblical scholars throughout the millennia. But now is not the time for that conversation. Again, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. pick your favorite search engine and just type in, is Hebrews true? Suspend your disbelief for a minute and read it. Now, it does not mean that there are not things here that we can learn from, and obviously the Father can preserve his word. But yet again, one of the reasons I love this translation in this Bible, because I feel it's much closer to the truth than something like King James, which was clearly put together with a political agenda. It's the King James version. He's the king, was the king. I don't really want any king but Yahweh telling me what should or shouldn't be in a Bible. So, point being here that understand that Hebrews is, that sounds like a toddler. Understand that Hebrews is in large part a bad translation of Jeremiah, okay? Good morning. Hi. So, here we go. Hebrews 8:6. But now he, Yeshua, has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and the house of Judah a renewed covenant. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand and led them out of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant. Was the covenant bad? No. Was the father bad? No. Was Moses bad? No. Is the law bad? No. Because they did not continue in my covenant and I disregarded them. What's the implication here? If you continue in these covenants, you will be regarded and well regarded, not disregarded. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh, and this is straight out of Jeremiah right here. Jeremiah 31 through 34. So the whole concept that this is brand new doctrine in Hebrews is completely false. This comes from the prophet Jeremiah. This is like word for word adulterated from the book of Jeremiah. Unfortunately, I wish it was word for word. It's not quite. But anyway, because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. What is this renewed covenant here that Messiah is talking about in Matt 26? For this is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. The Father concluded with the house of Israel. With the house of Judah. I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah a renewed covenant. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh. After those days, the renewed covenant, the covenant that Messiah is talking about, that he's the mediator of here in Hebrews 8:6. What's the covenant? Giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts. Do we need to flip back to Exodus 12:21? A law forever throughout your generations. Your laws in your mind, write them on your hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So what is this renewed covenant that Messiah embodies, that he's the mediator of? That we will have these laws on our mind and written in our hearts. Why do we do that? So that we can't just set our Bible down and walk away from it. So it's not just something cute we do on Sunday mornings for an hour and a half or a couple hours. I want to just camp on this for an hour. But instead, I'm going to ask you to pray over this and read your own Bible about this and not take my word for it. Ask the Father to speak to you on this. This renewed covenant that Messiah is the mediator of, that he manifested for us, that he facilitated for us, because the house of Judah and the house of Israel, they couldn't keep their half of the bargain with the Father, which was to do what? Remember these things and do them throughout your generations. They couldn't do that. So we had a mediator come. His name's Messiah, who perfectly embodied the Torah, who did two things for us. He did a lot of things for us, but two primary in my mind. The first is forgiveness of sin. Okay? All that's washed away. That's done with. Washed in the blood of the Lamb. Amen. That comes from Passover. Hey, 1 sec, baby, okay? So, all that comes from Passover. So, we are washed in the blood of the Lamb. We are forgiven of our sins so that the destroyer passes over us and we don't suffer the wages of our sin, which are death. The second is he is the mediator of this renewed covenant. And that covenant is designed that we would again have the Father's laws on our mind and in our hearts, which is the precise reason why the previous covenant was concluded with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, because they had forgotten them. Kid, you're killing me, Smalls. Because they had forgotten them. So Yeshua comes to remind us, to embody this for us. So, yeah, kind of a big deal. There's a toddler over here. Toddler's gonna toddle. Okay, so again, I would ask you to pray over this and research this and not take my word for it, but that's where I stand on it in a nutshell. The whole purpose of Yeshua coming back is to provide a mechanism for us to be, for removal of sin for us, so that we can seek the Father's face, so that we can basically take our rightful place in the battlefield to serve the kingdom, so we're not crushed by guilt or regret or self-loathing or hatred or fear or angst or anger or lust or any of these other things. Okay, so we can get right, so we can seek the Father, so we can do his things and write his laws in our minds and on our hearts. That's what Yeshua did for us. And then he perfectly embodied that, so that when we have a question as to how shall we conduct ourselves, we go, oh, that's right. Let's see what Messiah did. For if we're going to be Christians, that literally means be Christ-like. Let's be like Christ to the best of our broken ability. Okay. Now, Pesach. They do communion. And having sung a song, this is verse 30, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Yeshua said to them, all of you shall stumble in me this night, for it has been written, I shall strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. Again, Zechariah 13. But after I have been raised, I shall go before you into Galilee. And Peter answering him said, even if all stumble in you, I shall never stumble. And Yeshua said, truly I say to you, that before the cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. Yes, baby. Thank you so much. We got a Play-Doh duck. That's beautiful. Thank you, honey. Peter said to him, even if I have to die with you, I shall not deny you. All the taught ones, all the apostles said the same thing. Then Yeshua came with them near a place called Gethsemane and said to the taught ones, sit here while I go over there and pray. And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, James the greater and John. And he began to be grieved and deeply distressed. This is Yeshua. So they're praying. Then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly grieved, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. He's crushed by what's about going to happen. And here we see the humanness of Messiah. And going forward a little, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I desire, but as you desire. And he came to his apostles and found them asleep and said to Peter, So, were you not able to watch me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into trial. The spirit indeed is eager, but the flesh is weak. Again he went away a second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it is impossible for this to pass unless I drink it, let your desire be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them, went away again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. And when he came to his taught ones and said to them, Still sleeping and taking rest? See, the hour has come near, and the Son of Adam is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. See, he who delivers me has come near. A thought occurs to me here. Yeshua asked the Father, he prayed over this 3 times, right here in the Garden of Gethsemane. Your will be done, Father. After the 3rd time, here comes Judas. He's about to be delivered up. I know people who have been praying over something for years and not getting the answer that they want, so they just keep praying over it. Messiah shouldered the burdens of all the sins in all the world for all of the people and prayed over it 3 times, and the Father's answer was the same. This is my will. Yes, sir. Let it be done. Here we go. We need to listen to what the Father wants us to do, not be listening for what we want to hear from the Father. Those are 2 very different things. It's the Father's will be done, not our will be done. So if he's telling you to do something that's painful or seems crazy or that you don't think you can do, and he keeps telling you the same thing over and over again, it's time to go. Not to continue praying over the same thing, hoping for a different result. Malachi 3:6, I'm the Lord Yahweh Sabaoth. I change not. If he's told you 3 times, 3 is the number of completion. He's told you all the times. Okay. And while he was speaking, see, Judas, one of the 12, with a large crowd with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. And he who was delivering him up, Judas, gave them a sign, saying, Whomever I kiss, it is he, seize him. And this is dumb. There's some people who have tried to say that there was some kind of homosexuality here. No, that was just a greeting, like a kiss on the cheek. And it's an honorific, like, yeah, rabbi, pastor, teacher. I mean, they do this constantly in Europe, still to this day, to say, I mean, Europe's Europe. But in these Mediterranean cultures, this is a thing. And has been a thing for a long time. And going straight to Yeshua, he said, Greetings, Rabbi, and he kissed him, this being Judas. And Yeshua said to him, Friend, why have you come? And they came and laid hands on Yeshua and seized him. And look, one of those with Yeshua put out his hand and drew his sword, and striking the servant of the high priest, he cut off his ear. Then Yeshua said to him, Return your sword to its place, for all who take the sword shall die by the sword. Boy, this has been misused out of context repeatedly for however long. In this very moment, what he's saying is put your sword back. If you're going to wield that thing, if you're going to hold a sword, you will die by a sword. And from there on forward, for the rest of us, what he's saying is if you make your living with a sword, you will likely die because of a sword, right? It's like saying if I make my living coal mining, there's a strong possibility that I die in a coal mine, okay? But in this very moment, he's saying, dude, put your sword up. There's about 100 guys here, okay? And there's one of you with a sword, right? What does he say to him? Return your sword to its place, for all who take the sword shall die by the sword. Context matters, y'all. Or do you think I am not able to pray to my Father now, and he shall provide me with more than 12 legions of messengers? How then would the scriptures be filled that it has to be this way? In that hour, Yeshua said to the crowds, have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to arrest me? Daily I sat with you, teaching you in the set-apart place in the temple, and you did not seize me. But all this came to be so that the scriptures of the prophets might be filled. He's like, where's your balls at, bro? We sat together every day in the temple, and you didn't have anything to say, and yet here we are in the dark, and you come to me as if I was a robber or a thief. Yes, baby. Thank you. It's beautiful Play-Doh. Got a bunny here and a cylinder packed full of Play-Doh. Thank you, honey. But all this came to be so that the scriptures of the prophets might be filled. Then all the taught ones left him and fled, the apostles. And those who had seized Yeshua led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were gathered together. But Peter, Kepha, followed him at a distance to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. He was following along to see what's going on. And the chief priests and the elders and all the council were seeking false witness against Yeshua to put him to death. But they found none. Although many false witnesses came forward, they found none. But at last 2 false witnesses came forward and said, this one said, I am able to destroy the dwelling place of Elohim and build it in 3 days. Which they're taking what he said completely out of context. He's talking about this dwelling place. He said, yeah, you can kill me, but I'll be back in 3 days. What you destroy, we can build back up in 3 days. The dwelling place of Elohim, right here. And the high priest stood up and said to him, to Yeshua, have you no answer to make? What do these witness against you? And Yeshua remained silent. So the high priest said to him, I put you to oath by the living Elohim that you say to us, if you are the Messiah, the son of Elohim. And Yeshua said to him, you have said it. Besides, I say to you, from now on you shall see the Son of Adam sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of the heavens, which is Psalms 110 and Daniel 7. Then the high priest tore his garments, saying, he has blasphemed. Why do we need any more witnesses? See, now you have heard his blasphemy. What do you think? And they answered, saying, he is liable to death. Kill him. Then they spat on his face and beat him, and others slapped him, saying, prophesy to us, Messiah, who is the one who struck you? And Kepha, Peter, sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him, saying, and you were with Yeshua of Galilee. But he denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you say. And as he was going out into the porch, another girl saw him and said to those there, and this one was with Yeshua of Nazareth. But again he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a while those who stood by came to him and said to Peter, truly you are one of them, for even your speech gives you away. Then he began to curse and swear, saying, I do not know the man. And immediately a cock crowed. Thank you, honey. That's beautiful. And Peter remembered the word of Yeshua, who had said to him, before the cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. And going out, he wept bitterly. That's Matthew 2:6, and there's a lot here. I've heard a lot of hay made by pastors over the denying of Messiah 3 times by Peter. I'm not going to do that because, frankly, I think it's disingenuous and it misses the point that's made here. The point that's made here is that Messiah knows our very hearts. And it also illustrates our limitations as broken men to follow Messiah. And it shows here as well this human side of Messiah. Man, let this cup pass from me, Father. But if it's your will, let it be done. And really, I think if you're still sitting around praying, for a different answer from the Father after he's given you the same answer at least 3 times, third time pays for all. Go with it. Yeshua did, and we ought to be damn thankful that he did. I would also, again, encourage you to read Zechariah, probably 11, 12, and 13. And then research, here we have in Matthew 26, 26, the communion, the bread and the wine. Research that. Look at that in the context of Exodus 12, the Passover, and look at that in the context of Hebrews 8 and the renewed covenant. Research all of that. Don't take my word for it, but ask the Father to speak to you and to show it to you, and I feel that he will. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for dealing with the background noise. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Shalom and blessings, y'all.